So just before the video starts, I wanted to give a quick shout out to what is quite possibly the most apt sponsorship I've ever come across for Vivec. Oftentimes I'll decline, 99.9% of sponsorship deals I come across, because I just don't think Raid Shadow Legends is very appropriate for the sort of content on this channel. But I know a lot of you like to fall asleep to these report videos, and that's why I thought these COZYSNUG sleep earbuds from LYTMI really are a match made in heaven for this channel and its viewers. If you're anything like me, you might struggle falling to sleep on your back with conventional earbuds in. I'd always wondered whether there were any designs that facilitated side sleeping without waking up with a perforated eardrum. Not only do these earbuds work wonders for side sleepers, they boast high quality audio, are super lightweight and soft with various different sizes of ear wings to pick and choose from, on top of having 21 hours of charge when using the charging case. So, now you can all quickly and smoothly fall asleep listening to me recount the usual litany of mind-bending, reality-shattering experiences that we all know and love. If you're interested, please check out the link in the description, and don't forget to use the discount code VIVEC for 10% off your order. Anyway, we'll crack on with the video now, but be sure to let me know what you thought of the earbuds if you do end up snatching yourself a pair, and thank you to LYTMI for reaching out, really appreciate it. The darkest experience of my life. A Mescaline and 4-ACO DMT trip report by Sam. Posted at EARBUDS.org December 10th, 2018. I wanted to share this with my fellow psychonauts, in the interests of safety of fellow explorers, to promote caution when mixing psychedelics. This experience took place earlier in the summer, in a very comfortable setting, in my bedroom and garden one summer afternoon and evening. I was sharing this experience with my then new girlfriend, who is a clinical psychologist who works with psilocybin in a therapeutic context, and someone I share a very special bond with. This would be our very first powerful psychedelic experience together. Given that we both had a day to spare and the weather was fantastic, we decided to have a trip together. She has a fondness for San Pedro. I've had a gram of synthetic mescaline hydrochloride for a while now, so we split that between us. This was nice and quite gentle. Perhaps it had degraded in the time that I've had it. It wasn't as powerful as I was expecting. It was very pleasant though, and we were certainly both quite altered, but not really tripping per se. Senses were definitely heightened, and we were enjoying lounging around listening to music and chatting. I hear some of our hens and ducks outside kicking off, and I had a feeling something was off, and went outside to find one of the hen's chicks was missing. I have a chat with my friend and neighbour about this, and just as we are discussing it, we hear the sound of a distressed bird while our dogs are in the bushes nearby. I go into the bush and find the missing chick with its foot caught in a bin liner wrapped around the stem of a bush. Due to the luck of being in the right place at the right time, I was able to find it and free it. 6 or so hours in, after the chick incident, we head outside to lie in the sun by the pond. My girlfriend suggests we maybe smoke a joint, which sounds like a fine idea to me, but I suggest we have a capsule of 4-ACO DMT instead, so as to hopefully amp up the psychedelia a bit. I was hoping for and expecting a bit of an expansion of what we'd already had going on. My lady was down with this plan, so I went to measure out 2 capsules, in no way what I considered excessive amounts, but weighing out powerful psychedelics while on mescaline I don't think was really wise. I head back outside, capsules in hand, to enjoy what I thought would be a beautiful summer's evening in a stunning spot in nature. We swallow our capsules and bask in the evening sun, taking in all the sights, sounds and scents of nature around us. Around 15 to 20 minutes later, I knew we were in for a wild ride, as powerful geometric patterns were forming with open eyes against the backdrop of a blue sky. This concerned me a little bit, as I felt at that point the capsule should really have only just dissolved, and yet I was already coming up extremely hard. I hadn't counted on or desired this, but the setting at least was close to optimal. Things escalate rapidly though. I hear this electrical, mechanical thrumming or whirring, and it sounded very real, like it was coming from outside of myself. A minute later, my girlfriend asked whether I could hear this mechanical whirring as well. We were rapidly entering a very powerful psychedelic experience. The headspace for me had a very pushy feel that was unpleasant and very in my face, and there was a dark, chaotic tint to it. Behind closed eyes, I found myself in a very similar realm or space to a strong vaped DMT experience, only this was only getting stronger with time. I started to vocalize, throat sing, and this started to sculpt and shape the patterns that I saw. Gave me some small feeling of being able to navigate the chaos to some degree, which was helpful. My girlfriend was having a really hard time. She's had previous issues on ayahuasca, mushrooms and holotropic breathwork, where she really struggles with breathing, and she feels this is linked to birth trauma resurfacing. She subsequently learned that her birth was a very traumatic one. She was worried about her breathing, so I did my best to comfort and reassure her, and I embraced her and started throat singing again, as much as for my own reassurance as hers, and it seemed to actually help her too. Sometime later, she moved past this phase and the sun started to go down. It was getting cold. There was a slight let-up in intensity, but we were both still deep in it. We headed indoors to get cozy and listen to some music. Well, I was still in a deep state. Music was not the guiding, helpful force it sometimes definitely can be in these states. I was lying in the fetal position in bed, hyperventilating. The dark, pushy edge to the experience was still very much present and unrelenting, and this combo felt like it was hard on my body and mind. It was dark now, and around 9 or so hours after taking the mescaline, and 3 or so hours since taking the 4-ACO DMT, I was just doing my best to ride out this whole experience, and without warning, something changed suddenly. My mental state became saturated with a very tangible feeling of darkness, impending doom, despair and hopelessness. I felt weak, and lying there felt like something between a decaying old corpse or an aborted human fetus. I truly felt like I was in the shadow of death itself. It really felt like I was poisoned and in a great deal of danger. I've never ever had such an experience before. This feeling of dying was nothing to do with an ego loss type of dying, and it was worrying to be feeling such horrific things at such a late stage of an experience. I also felt like my blood pressure was very, very high. I sat up on the edge of the bed feeling very tangible feelings of doom, and just tried to stay in the present, to just be in the moment, take each moment as it came. I was getting these painful twinges in my heart, and some weird electric twinges in my brain. Heart attack or seizure definitely seemed imminent now, and it was like my system was being worked to the very point of collapse, and it felt like death could occur at any moment. I kept these feelings to myself for a while, until my girlfriend clocked on to something being wrong. She did her best to reassure me, making the valid point that we both had ingested the same quantities of substances, and she was fine, if a little ruffled after a previous grueling experience. In her view, I was suffering from a panic attack, which may very well have been the case, and perhaps the psychedelic headspace had amplified this. To me though, it did not feel like a bad trip. It was scary in that, unlike other gnarly experiences with psychedelics I've had, it really felt like it was my physical self that was in danger, that my system was poisoned. This went on for some time, and it was truly the darkest, most terrifying, most grueling experience of my entire life. I'm a well-travelled psychonaut, and my feathers are not easily ruffled, but this was really, really scary. To me, it genuinely felt like a physical poisoning that was being made mentally manifest by the psychedelic experience. I recall another rather harrowing time mixing mescaline as it happens, but falling well short of this experience, at least for me personally. And this time that was with LSD. This was not a winning combination for any of our party on that occasion, it must be said. There was a dark tint to the experience. Physically, it felt hard on one's system, like blood pressure was elevated. Mentally, it was like being caught in the midst of two powerful psychic tides. My dear sister had a much worse time than either myself or my friend on that occasion. She was on the SSRI citalopram at the time, a very foolish oversight on my part. She's used with psilocybin and LSD alone previously to no bad effect. I think she may have experienced serotonin syndrome. She got very, very hot. I could see the steam pouring off her, in fact. I went to get a glass of water and came back to the room in haste following a commotion, to find my sister trying to jump out the window, as she was under the impression she was on fire and burning up, and she needed to get people's attention. So, in this case, it was like the mental experience of her trip was manifesting as the feeling of being on fire, when she seemed to be suffering from hypothermia. At some point, things started to drop off in intensity, much to my relief, but after a great deal of mental and physical anguish and torture, I must say. That night, as I tried to sleep, I kept drifting back into that state of darkness and mental anguish and heart twinges. I took a Valium to help me get off to sleep. Thankfully, I awoke with no side effects other than some substantial residual humbling. I wanted to share this as a warning to fellow psychonauts, to be cautious when mixing different psychedelics. Certainly, I will take much more care with future explorations. Anyway, stay safe, everyone. Just a few brief thoughts on this trip report, especially in the context of combining psychedelics. I've said many times before that you should already enact harm reduction safety protocols when using any psychedelic, but when you're mixing psychedelics, you should take even greater conscious effort to enact these safety protocols and harm reduction. Make sure you really hammer down your set and setting, and also be prepared for things to maybe not go the way that you expected, very much like how it did in this trip report. Let's say, like in the context of this trip report, or context of mescaline and 4-ACO DMT, you could have vast experience with both of these substances individually, but combining them together, it can sort of amplify the risks, but it can also amplify the positive effects of psychedelics 100%. It just means that you have to err on the side of caution a bit more, and also be open to the possibility that maybe mixing two things that have produced insanely constructive personal development and expansion of consciousness by themselves could actually take a completely different turn when mixed together. But this shouldn't mean that you should never mix psychedelics, because you can definitely have some super expansive experience in terms of your mind. Sometimes there's things like, I guess, when you throw certain psychedelics into the mix, like say weed, it can make you super aware of your thoughts and emotions, and sometimes the downside to that is it can make the mind a bit more, busier, more active, and can sort of twist your thinking and maybe even make you quite sluggish, and sometimes it can overpower the trip. So yeah, you just got to be very conscious of what you're doing when you're mixing any substance into your trip. Know that it can go all sorts of different ways, and interesting, like in the context of this report, his girlfriend, who had probably a vaster amount of difficulty with her psychedelic trips, had this mixture and she was completely fine. So yeah, sometimes these panic attacks can just come on very random. Sometimes we have almost like, as humans, I guess, this level of hubris in regards to our own abilities, and we're like, no, yeah, I can do this, I've got all this experience, etc, etc. But life is constantly throwing challenges at you, and you just don't know what you're gonna get. So the only thing you can really do is just approach psychedelics themselves with consciousness, wisdom, respect, and if you're doing it in a mixture with another psychedelic, amplify those levels, because not only will experience be amplified, it means that your conscious effort going into the experience to make it as safe and as productive as possible also need to be amplified. But yes, it must be said that sometimes it might not go exactly how you planned. The worst thing you can do, I'd say, is like if a trip starts going south when you've done all of the great safety protocols, set and setting, research, experience beforehand, etc. When it does start to go a bit south, or west as we would say, I call it going west, where I'm from, when you start going west, mate, you need to just sort of bite the bullet in the experience and try and do your best to let go, because naturally you might be like, oh no, why is it going to shit, because I took all of these safety protocols and I did all this stuff going into it to try and prevent this going wrong, and now it's going wrong, and then that can induce a panic attack. Sometimes, yeah, you just gotta take the L. You're not really taking the L, but yeah, bite the bullet and accept your fate, and this will make whatever comes up much easier to embrace and let go, because sometimes you go into these trips with these intentions for, I don't know, tapping into aspects of your life and reality, human history, whatever it wants to be, but then the trip will actually not manifest those intentions so that you can understand them. It'll take a completely different turn. Like, it'll make you face up to a fear or trauma that you've been suppressing, etc. Just out of nowhere, it's like, oh no, actually this is the time when you need to face it. So it can have a bit of a twisted nature to it, tripping, but the best thing you can do is embrace it with as much love and understanding and awareness as possible, and you'll hopefully have a good time. So yep, that's all I say. That's all I say. Yeah, that's all I'm saying here, folks. So I'll see you on the other side, and thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and support me on Patreon if you so please. But if not, that's all gravy. Anyway, big love, and see you later.